Are you ready for the occult tea? Because it's coming in hot.
I wanna have all night at the moon. I wanna have all night at the moon. Come on.
Hi pumpkins, my name is Caroline Ironwill. I am a certified coach practitioner and professional tarot consultant. If you'd like to book a reading, you can do so at the website below, www.carolineIronwill.com. This video is my contribution to the occult tea hashtag that's been going around in witchcraft communities. Now, before anyone says anything, I know I don't identify as a witch, and that's my choice to not use that word, but I do see the overlap. I actually refer to myself as an occultist. I do see the overlap with the witchcraft community. I am in no way offended to be a part of the community. I think that it is full of a lot of really wonderful people. The hashtag occult tea conversation was started by three creators: the Redheaded Witch, the Norse Witch, and the Polish Witch. I believe those were the three. If I'm wrong about that, do correct me, please. I became aware of the hashtag by a creator named Thorn Mooney. I'd never heard of her before. I saw the hashtag come up and I watched her video. I really grokked with a lot of things that she said and then started to deep dive on this whole occulty hashtag. She and I seem to have a lot in common. I'll leave her channel below because I think she's a really good creator and has a lot of amazing things to say. So yes, all four of those links will be below to those creators. The occulty hashtag was broken up into several different categories. I see a lot of these categories as being very intertwined, so I don't know if I can timestamp it the way that some people have, but I will try to be as consistent and as tight as I can in this response. I'll try not to ramble, but I have a lot to say about this because every single one of these questions I've actually been thinking about a video on, and in one case I've actually been researching a book on. So I have some views that are kind of different than a lot of what I've heard parroted throughout the conversation, and I think simply because I've had a lot of time to think about this, in some cases years, that I've been wanting to write this book and haven't yet. I'll get to it, I promise. Okay. So there's a series of questions. The first question is on social media and the witchcraft community, and this is the one that I've been giving a lot of thought to. If you've been around witchcraft community a long time, you might be aware of a book that became rather famous, 1979 I think it was written, called Drawing Down the Moon by Margot Adler. And in this book she talks about the history of modern witchcraft, how it came to be with a real focus on American witchcraft. And then in the mid-90s, Ronald Hutton, who is one of my favorite authors, wrote Triumph of the Moon, which was a history of modern British witchcraft. So even some of Gardner's influences and so forth. And the book I have in mind is called Howling at the Moon, Witchcraft in the Digital Age. So I have been researching this, not as seriously as I probably should have, but this has been on my mind for a few years. And when I first started thinking about the book, I was like, witchcraft or social media brings us all together and we can, hold hands and sing Kumbaya, or we all come from the goddess, or whatever you want to chant. But I think the more I've delved into the subject, I've seen some darker sides to this that I think are important to talk about. Much of the conversation has repeated that during COVID was very lonely, and social media gave an ability to find a community. And community is something that we all crave. And if you were growing up in the 90s or early 2000s, or even before that, when there wasn't this access to social media, and you lived in somewhere that was more conservative, you wouldn't have had any sort of witchcraft community. It would have had to be of something that was done in private, because before things were more well known, before people could connect, this was something that was done alone. And your parents couldn't find out, your boss couldn't find out, because there were consequences, because people didn't understand. And social media has created a place where people can gather, and there have been moots, which are public gatherings, usually at a pub. There are more public covens, there are online covens. I do believe that online community is as equally valid as in-person community. It's nice to be able to see people in person, but especially during the pandemic, many people were lonely, and that's about when I started my channel too. Actually, I've made my first video in December 2019, which is still my favorite video, and it was right after that that COVID started, and that was kind of, and I was talking about both my magical journey as well as another problematic creator. That's a different story. But the darker side that that I'm kind of talking about, that I've been researching, is essentially that there is no difference between online and in person, which is why I believe that online communities are as equally valid, and friendships made online can be as equally valid as those made in person. And we learned over the pandemic that a lot of things that were happening face-to-face could be done virtually, and that it's created a big shift in our culture that so much is virtual now. But in me saying that there's no difference between the internet and real life, that means that everything that we do online is real life. And I think that there might have been a day before social media where you could have an online persona and have an in-person persona or a real life persona, and never the twixt shall meet. I think those days are over. And I've heard a lot of people allude to essentially that you can do whatever you want to someone, you can be as nasty or as cruel as you want, as long as you don't go real life. And I think that is really false. I think that there is no real life and online. I think that it is all real life. I think that we've seen cases where young people have been bullied to the point that they have taken their own lives online because of social media bullying. And we've seen radicalization of people online and on social media that we didn't see in as much or as fast before social media. Heck, in 2016, the Russian government created a bunch of memes and targeted towards certain people. A large population of the United States believed that a reality TV star, failed real estate mogul, was the second coming of Jesus. And now we have this entire cult of Trumpism that happened because of social media. And we know that. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This was found through the Mueller investigation. We know that Russian hackers did infiltrate Facebook and the like to alter the course of an entire nation, of one of the most powerful nations on the planet. So I don't think we can say that there's a difference between real life and social media. One thing I can say myself is that I have lost housing opportunities because of videos that have been made about me based on stuff they didn't understand. So real life, internet, same thing. We can no longer differentiate between the two. There was talk about how short form content wasn't good for learning, and I think when it comes to simple mechanical things, that it really can. And I think that you can do short videos on like a magical tip, or like a short demonstration on how to make an ink, or how to make an oil lamp, or how to take an orange and make it into an oil lamp, and how to make your own incense. I think that those kind of things can be really fun with short form content. Personally, I don't really do TikTok, and I know I should. As TikTok when it first came out was a minute. I can't talk for only a minute. YouTube lets me ramble. Yeah, I think that there is some value in some short form content and some Instagrammable aesthetic to show your book of shadows and your demonstrations. I think the next one was about authenticity. And again, this goes back intertwined with social media, because if we're presenting ourselves online, how authentic are we being? And I think when I disentangled from Christianity, that was one of the things that I really needed to disentangle, was this idea of a real Christian, or a real witch, or a real occultist. And I don't think it is up to us to decide what is in someone's heart, or what is authentic. I think that what we do online may or may not represent who we really are and what we really do, but I don't think that is for the viewer to decide, because we don't know. I also think that one of the most powerful forms of magic is art. And what is magic if not creating, is not making things into being? So whether what you're creating into being is is some sort of ritual, and you're creating an opportunity in your life through some sort of really fun mean, like cooking a meal and having that be part of a ritual to draw in money, or to have a special tea which becomes a potion that you draw in love. That's all creativity, that's all art. And I think that if video making or photography is your art, that can still be magical. So if someone has that witchy aesthetic, that could be all for show, but it could also be part of their creative process, and that's not for us to judge. I think that could be for us to appreciate. One creator who I adore her aesthetic is Aylwen Oak. She has the most beautiful videos. She puts so much work into her videography. She is a talented videographer, and if you watch her early videos compared to her more recent videos, she really has taken the time to learn the art of videography and how to make that into her career as a content creator and as a professional witch. The Witch of Wanderlust is someone who's really done that as well, and I can link those creators as well down below. But part of her channel is her art, and her thumbnails are beautifully photographed. And although I appreciate her videography, I really love her photography. So I think that if we're incorporating an aesthetic into our social media, that doesn't necessarily mean it's fake. I think that we can appreciate the art, even if it is just for art's sake. I also realize that there's an important element of performance in public ritual that doesn't exist in private ritual. In private ritual, it is mostly me sitting at an altar, or me sitting anywhere and going inward, achieving an altered state of consciousness, and doing my thing internally. Either that or I'm chanting, which I usually don't do in public, but do you really just want to watch a video of me meditate for an hour? Do you really just want to watch a video of me chanting the same thing for an hour? I don't think so. And I'm not a liturgist, and I like my rituals kind of like quick and dirty, not in the fact of like time, but in the fact of like simple. And I think that if you have to read your ritual off of paper, it is too long. That's my belief, because I don't think that you can achieve that altered state of consciousness while you're reading off paper, and that brings you back into your body. And but at the same point, my teacher, Andrieh Vitimus, I can leave his links as well. He is an amazing public ritual performer, and so his rituals are very interactive. His rituals are art. They are a performance art. They get damn good results too, and I think that is how I differentiate between real and fake, is really results. So yeah. I think that if you're going to create an engaging video, if you're going to create engaging content for social media, there does need to be a performance factor, and I think that is valid as a tool of creation. The next one, I'm actually going to switch them up. I'm going to talk about FOMO first, and then I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome, because I have a lot to say about imposter syndrome. FOMO, fear of missing out. I think that this is something that I notice depending on my work schedule, and I think this is, and I know the last part of this is about capitalism, but again, it all intertwines. And if you have a job where you have to work evenings, where you have to work weekends, where you can't take the solstice off, that often means missing out. And if you have a coven, it is very important that everybody shows up, because you have an obligation to your community, and you're not going to develop those relationships if you can't show up. And whether that means showing up in person or showing up via Zoom, you still have to be there, and you're not going to be able to develop that magical cohesion, that synergy, if you're not showing up. And when the reason that you can't show up is because you have to work, because life is expensive and you need to put food on the table, that becomes a problem. And working in healthcare for so many years, there's so many times where I've missed a major event. Like, how many times do we hear on the Weather Network or whatever that this is a once-in-a-lifetime eclipse or once-in-a-lifetime meteor shower, and if you don't see it now, you're not going to do it. And so many times, like, you want to go do magic, and you can't because you have to work, or your kid's sick and you have to be up, or you got to take your animal to the vet, and life still happens. And I think that I have really felt times that I've missed out on things because I had to work. I would like to be more cohesive with my magic, but instead I feel like it's in conflict with my magic, and that leads to FOMO for me. Imposter syndrome. This is the big one, and I understand that I may offend some people in saying this, and I think that I'm allowed to have this view, and you're allowed to have your views. I know I have some active practicing Christians on my channel. You're still welcome here. We can have respectful discussions. And when I say things about recovering from Christianity, I'm often talking about deconstructing and disentangling from some very toxic views that I learned when I was in a fundamentalist cult. So your average Christian is probably a lovely person. I'm not talking about that. But I think that there are some aspects of our culture that are influenced by Christianity, even if you weren't raised as a Christian, even if you were raised in another religion, because so much of our culture is infused with aspects of Christianity. We don't notice it because it's just what we've always known, and we swim in it like a fish doesn't know what water is. So I think that imposter syndrome is part of this toxic aspect of Christian culture that many of us, especially women, still experience. And there were many reasons that I had to leave Christianity, but one of the reasons that really struck with me was the idea that I was nothing, that I was garbage, that I was born in sin, that the only reason I was worth anything was because of the grace of God, because Jesus saved me. And that I think when you try to do something on your own, when you try to get your own power, and you're told that you're worthless, and you're told that you're nothing, and you're told that men should be making decisions for you, yeah, you can feel like an imposter. And two things will kill your magic. One, lust for results. Two, doubting your ability. And I think that if you're going to have effective magic, you need to achieve an altered state of consciousness, and you need to have full confidence that you can do it. Part of my deconstructing has really been about owning my own power and having confidence in my own power. Both of my traditions, that being Celtic Reconstructionist Druidry, which I am kind of getting away from. I am going to make a video about my little spiritual crisis that I had last year, and chaos magic, both don't really have imposter syndrome or lack of confidence as part of the culture. So within Celtic Reconstructionist Druidry, it is very important to be able to boast that humility is not a Celtic concept. Humility is a Christian concept. And there's one myth about these warriors who wanted to become the godfather of Cuchulainn. They wanted to be his godfather, and so they told these tales of, I can't remember the details of them. I should know my myths better, but they're all sitting around drinking. Well, I can swim 10 miles, and I punched a shark in the face, and then I strangled a bear with my bare hands, and so much. And then the next guy, like, oh well, I swam 20 miles, and I strangled 5 bears, and then and keeps going among these three of like upping themselves. And so boasting is not a bad thing in that culture. The difference is you need to be able to back it up. So if you say, I can strangle 5 bears with my bare hands, you need to be able to perform that. In chaos magic, it is completely non-dogmatic. So there's one exercise in Peter Carroll's, I can't remember which of Peter Carroll's books it is, but you roll a dice, and you have 6 very different religions listed on a piece of paper. And what number that dice comes up, that's your religion for the day, and you need to be able to embrace it wholly. And everything you do, you need to do with whole belief. And that's what you were doing that day. And the next day, you roll it, and that dice comes up a different number, and that's your religion for the day. So maybe one day you are a nihilistic atheist, and then the next day you're an evangelical Christian, and the next day you're a Hindu, and the next day you are Catholic, and then the next day, whatever 6 you pick, but you need to be able to embrace it wholly and believe it wholly. In the first chapter of my teacher's book, Hands on Chaos Magic, he talks about how, like, if he wanted to, he could do Expecto Patronum to cleanse a house, or Pokemon to capture a spirit. And he'd never do that in front of a client, but You need to be able to believe it wholly to be able to pull it off. So I think that the denial of our own power, the denial of our confidence, especially as women, is something that I really would like to see us overcome within the magic community. Gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is something I have been guilty of and something I'm trying to work on. I've spent a lot of time researching and a lot of time practicing and studying, and I'm a pretty smart cookie. I don't know everything, but I think I get really frustrated when I see things that are factually false being passed around. Like, for instance, one time I saw this picture and it looked like a sorority group having a crystal workshop, and the caption said something like, "We are the witches that you, or we are the granddaughters of the witches you forgot to burn." And I'm like, thinking to myself, first of all, they were hanged, not burned. Second of all, you're probably the first, second of all, you're a little sorority here. Your ancestors were probably the ones that kicked the stool out. Witchcraft was always something about subversion, and was always something about being different and being a freak. And I think that's kind of why there's a lot of drama in neo-pagan communities, because we're so used to being the outcasts, we're so used to being the misfits, and when you get a bunch of misfits together, we don't always know how to behave and how to act. Now I've gone on and this gets into the capitalism, I've gone on at links about what I feel about the gem and crystal industry, and I am gobsmacked that a bunch of people who claim to care about the planet will still go buy a crystal and not find out where it's sourced. And there's so much misinformation out there about the witch trials. Most of them were hanged. None of them were actual witches. They were all pious Christian folk who were unpopular and had a rumor started about them. And so when I see these cliquey girls, and yeah, like that's the opposite, because it was them who would report to the witchfinders. Oh, you know, that lady down there who owns her own property, and who doesn't get along with anyone. Yeah, she made my cow run dry, or she tried to seduce my husband, and then she gets accused of witchcraft. She would be brought in, and another video of why I don't call myself a witch, but we'll get there. Anyway, there was never any the great goddess. There was never any Dianic mass religion of that was secret by women. There were absolutely small regional cults who would worship a goddess, but there was never any the great goddess. There was never any dichotomy between the god and the goddess. So much of what many neo-pagans call history was actually, like, Robert Graves wrote a book called The White Witch. There was never a maiden mother crone. There were goddesses who were maidens, there were goddesses who were mothers, there were goddesses who were crones, there were goddesses who came in threes. There was never a goddess who was a maiden mother crone. That is not factual. That is from Robert Graves. There was never a Celtic tree astrology. Oak King and Holly King is also modern. So much of this that we consider fact. So yeah, I can get really judgy about people who just believe stuff and have done no research about it. But then again, if they want to call it true, like, nothing's true, everything's permitted, right? When it comes to capitalism, and this, I'm going to transition into the grifter because I know I'm all over the place here. We have, because we live in this capitalistic society, this postmodern capitalism, we almost have to monetize our hobbies, and I think that can be tough. I love tarot more than anything. I am very, very happy to make tarot my career. I am completely okay with any sacrifices I need to make, including my decision to live in a van for a year so that I can regrow my business, which since COVID I've not been able to get it back on the ground. So I'm making that sacrifice so I can afford an office. And that's okay with me. If you're into Myers-Briggs, which yes, I know Myers-Briggs is problematic. I'm the ENTJ, so I'm always like productivity and side hustle and how much did you do today, and yes, I realize how toxic those points of view are, but I was really raised with that Protestant work ethic, and that's important to me. So yeah, there are so many things that I can monetize really quickly because I've had to. There are probably 10 different things that I could do if I need to make $100 really fast. I can read tarot. I can bake 20 loaves of bread. I can, edit videos. I can, I'm not a good video editor, but I mean, I could even charge $10 an hour because most video editors make over $100 an hour, and I can bring in some cash if I need to. I need to really look at, why do I need to monetize my hobbies? Why am I selling knit and crocheted items? Why am I doing this? Because we live in a society that is really toxic and late capitalism, and that has forced us to have to monetize a lot of our hobbies. When it comes to grifting, I do think that grifting is real, but I don't think it is unanimous or ubiquitous to everything magical. And another video that I have planned in the works is one on addressing a lot of atheist channels, because I watch a lot of atheist content as well, and it seems like there are other alternative therapies that they don't treat with the same disgust and mocking that they do tarot readers. And there's the assumption that all tarot readers are grifters, and that is uneducated and inaccurate and offensive. And I think that I'm going to do some deep dives on this, but I think it actually is rooted in some racism against the Roma people. I'll get into that further, but I have a lot to say about that. But that's not to say that there aren't grifters out there. I am friends with quite a few people in the tarot culture and the tarot community. I'm not going to drop names, but some of my friends are very well known in tarot culture and tarot community. And two very big tarot readers who I'm good friends with have dropped social media because there are so many cloned accounts and hacked accounts, and every day there's a new one popping up on Instagram, especially, is full of these hacked accounts of people trying to impersonate them to try to get people to pay for readings who are not them, and so that's a huge issue. And I've also had people sliding into my Facebook DMs that my ancestors are trying to contact me and they have a message, and myself, as a practitioner who has a great relationship with my ancestors, I'm thinking, like, my ancestors had a message for me. They'd tell me directly, but thank you. Or they have a message from Spirit. Now, I know that many of you are new to my channel, but I used to have a dog named Spirit. So when someone says they have a message from Spirit, I'm like, is she reaching out beyond the grave because she wants more treats? Lots of things are spirits. Which spirit are you talking about? Be more specific. So, and yeah, if a spirit wanted to contact me, they can use it. And this one woman kept repeatedly coming into my DMs and how she wanted, she had a message for me. And finally I'm like, look, lady, this is not the way to run a business. If you want to build a tarot business, this is not how to do it. And she's finally like, okay, well, what do I do then? And I referred her to some books, which is what inspired me to start the new series I'm going to have on Going Pro. As I rebuild my tarot business, I'm going to walk my audience through how to build a tarot business, and at the same time, hopefully get some accountability on that. There are, of course, actual grifters out there who will say things like, oh, you have a curse on you, pay me $10,000 and I'll remove it. And that is, of course, very unethical and gives all of us a bad name. I'm very good at what I do. I understand that what I do takes a lot of responsibility, that people are going to make massive decisions of their lives based on what I tell them, and that's a power that they give me, and that's an honor, and I need to respect my client by honoring that. Sometimes, you know what, even though I'm very good, I'm wrong, because I have my own biases. Tarot is an art, right? Tarot isn't a science, and as much as I want it to be a science, it is still a beautiful, rich tradition. So I think that's all of them. It all kind of winds together, and this this big occulty brew. So let me know what your thoughts are. If you have posted an occulty video, you can share it in the links below, and I'll check it out and I'll comment on your video. Please do like and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are, and I look forward to speaking with you a lot more in the future. May you pray with a good fire. Have a great day, pumpkins.